Hey, I'm your host, Marissa Panay. Welcome to Your Brand is Showing, the podcast for service providers who are tired of blending in and wondering why no matter how much you market your business, you're still not attracting the clients you want. Spoiler, it all comes back to your brand. So let's make sure your brand is saying the right thing to the right people so you can finally create content that truly connects. Hey guys, today I'm joined by Tom Langan. He is a two-time Emmy Award-nominated director of photography and a producer. He's worked on hundreds of hours of content for big names like the BBC, NBC, Universal, and Discovery. But what really made me want to bring him on the show, aside from the fact that our ideologies are very much aligned, is his book, Legendeering. And in this book, he basically talks about video communication strategy that's all about using the power of human connection to help businesses lead with value and build communities of supporters. So I'm super excited to dive into this conversation, but would you want to give a little bit more information about you and like what Legendeering is and all that stuff?
Sure. I mean, I spent about 17 years in the entertainment industry before jumping off and starting Telex Media. I'm starting to build my own business about 7 years ago. And in the course of those kind of two careers, I came to a realization, taking my skill set and experience that I developed in the entertainment industry and bringing it into the B2B space. I realized that there was a huge need for businesses to stop thinking about their customers and clients like dollars and cents on a P&L and data points on a spreadsheet, and start thinking about them or be reminded to think about them like the human beings that they are, right? And so that's kind of that was sort of the impetus for Legendeering. Is I had this idea that I wanted to humanize the world of business, which sounds, lofty and grand, and really it's very straightforward. I just want businesses to treat people like people. So it's not a high-minded philosophical goal so much as it's a very practical one, I think. And I realized if I'm going to do this, I need a way to do it. And if I'm going to come up with a way to do it, I'm going to have to, I know my experience better than anybody else. I have to create that blueprint. And that led to the book and Legendeering that you mentioned. So that's just a little bit more about kind of the genesis of this whole thing.
No, I love that. So like when we first met, you started talking about it, I was like, okay, our philosophies are very much aligned. And it's like the same thing that if any of my listeners are familiar with like the content and the way I approach content, it's the same thing. It's just applying it to video content, which is pretty cool. So like, I guess for the people that, because it sounds like high and mighty, like, oh, we're just trying to like humanize a business, but how can you unpack that a little? Like, how would somebody humanize a brand? Because a lot of people do things like, oh, I'm a company, I'm selling this product or service. Like I'm not trying to build a personal brand. I'm just trying to do business. Can you talk a little bit about like the humanization of a brand?
Yeah, so I think we've been taught to be very transaction focused in business. I was actually just talking about this with somebody else recently, and the thing I said was we've been trained to always be after the ding of the cash register and the sound of the drawer opening. Like that is sort of what we're taught to hold up as the ultimate goal of business. And the truth is, I think that all businesses are service-based businesses. I will toe that line. I will die on that hill. I absolutely believe that every business is a service-based business. And the reason I believe that is because businesses are founded, built, improved upon, grown, etc., to solve a problem. It's one of the first things you ever hear when it comes to talking about entrepreneurship and startups is what's the problem you're trying to solve, right? That's the first question anybody asks if you ever go for funding or you're trying to get into an incubator or any of those things. The question is, what problem are you solving, right? And so if you're solving a problem, you're providing a service, whether that's through a product or actually through services, you're providing a service. And at both ends of that, right? On the business side, on the creation of the solution, and on the problem side, on both sides of that are people. And we get really focused on what happens between the two people, and we forget that at the end of the day, the decision maker on either side is a human being. And And if there's one thing that we universally dislike as people, it's not being treated like people.
Yes, exactly. Like, think of it like yeah, so it's like what you said of like whether you're selling a product or a service, it really is a service. It's like I've never thought about it that way, but that makes so much sense because it's like you could be selling a hot sauce or something to that effect, but it's like, okay, that person's buying it because they want to feel a certain way, they want to have an experience with their meal, they want to like whatever it is. So I think that's a very interesting take of like, oh, we all are providing a service. And then coming back to we want to feel like people, like, yeah, like think about you call any like helpline or support desk, or God forbid there isn't a helpline and you have to do like robot chats. You get so fed up and it's like, okay, come back to the center. We are literally just a person connecting to a person, whether it's big giant company, whether it's solopreneur, whether it's like big scale, little scale, it's still the same thing. So I agree completely with that.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's again, it's something that we're just, it's sort of trained out of us. We're taught to forget that the people on either side of the transaction or the exchange that happens, that is the business, the people on either side of that are actually the most important part.
Mhm. Yeah, no, 100%. So like when people, so this is like something that I touch a lot on in like the brand strategy side of it. It's like, what's your why? Why are you doing this? And like getting into the reason, like the why you're talking and all those things. So when it comes to video content, 'cause I know that's where you specialize in, how would you be able to, or how would you guide people into communicating this or like knowing even where to start?
Yeah. So I like to think of it in terms of a couple of things. I think one is, first of all, you have to acknowledge and accept and understand that no one that you're talking to through the video content that you're creating is as intimately aware of your business as you are, or in love with your business the way that you are, right?
Yeah.
So
You're so close to it. You like always have blinders on.
yeah, exactly. So you have to remember that who you're talking to is not you. You are not the audience, right? So you always have to put the audience first. And then the other thing that that I think is incredibly important for businesses to focus on is, how do I deliver value? So outside of your product or your service, how do I make the lives of the people that I want to serve, right? The community that I want to serve, how do I make their lives better outside of my products or services, right? And if you can help, if you can kind of cross that divide, figure out a way to deliver value, to help them see and appreciate and understand you and your brand and your business, and to empathize with and emotionally connect with your brand or your business, then the transactions just follow, right?
100%. And
So,
I think that's
yeah.
something that's like kind of abstract to people. So I kind of want to like use an example that you actually gave in your book, which by the way, get his book if you haven't gotten it. But like you talked about like a realtor. I think they were talking about something with like the like local environment or something to that effect. Do you want to talk to that story so we can get like like context around what you're talking about with value?
Yeah. So we were talking about a realtor who had originally reached out to me, and we helped develop a legendaring strategy for her. And essentially what it was like in the world of real estate, right? Like if I say real estate videos or content from real estate agents, everybody, I think, immediately has a very similar picture in their mind of what that looks like. It's a home tour. Sometimes it's just B-roll or just footage without anybody in it. Sometimes the realtor is doing the tour and showing you around the house, but it's all basically the same. It's essentially the realtors showing off their products, right? The commodity that they're selling, the houses, right? That's essentially what they're doing.
Yeah, it's like these are the
They're
four
just
walls.
walking you
Let's
around.
show it in all these different ways.
Yeah, exactly. And so with this idea that we were looking for ways that she could deliver value to the community that she wanted to serve outside of just doing the same stuff that every other realtor does, the concept we came up with was to do a content series around her love of parks and green spaces in New York City, right? And so the idea was to then dive into this content series and create this value, because at the end of the day, people who are looking to move to a particular neighborhood would be interested in the community that they're joining and not just the amenities within the four walls of the condo or the apartment that they're buying, right? And it's something that realtors don't do a lot of. They might talk about the rating of the school system or the walkability of the city or something, but that's about it. It's kind of an afterthought, if that. So the
Currently
strategy
looking for houses.
was,
I can attest to that.
yeah, exactly. And so the strategy was to kind of turn that on its head, to leverage an interest that she already had, that she was already connected to in her personal life, and use that to provide value to prospective clients and customers.
Yeah, I love that because I think that is like a perfect example of showing that you are very much like anyone could sell a house. Anyone could show a video of a house, but what's going to make somebody choose you over somebody else is the fact of relating it back to you. And like people want to like and know who they're doing business with. And having that like unique edge, so to speak, of, well, this is important to me, the environment, the parks, these things are something that I hold dear to myself. So I'm going to be passionate about when I'm talking about it because I get excited about it. And like, if I can communicate this to you, it's giving you another layer of, instead of just, I'm selling you this house, I'm selling you this whole picture of what your life could be like with these parks or with this and like all this additional experience. And I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with is it's like, but I just take photos. It's like, no, you're not just a photographer. Like you're capturing the moment. You're creating like this whole, like you're part of somebody's wedding day if you're a wedding photographer. Like thinking about the additional aspects of value that you give because like I feel like a lot of people are just like, oh, add value. And it's so hard to like conceptualize what that value is. And I think that is just like 10 out of 10 good example.
Thanks. Well, and I think the other thing too is often when you say, oh, we should look for ways to add value, they immediately start thinking of like, okay, so what, I have to create a bonus
like add-on
thing or a discount or a coupon or whatever, right? Like, do I have to generate a coupon code now? Or like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about something else that you can give them that they want or need.
Yep, exactly. And sometimes, like, I think about it too, is sometimes, even though personality isn't a good way to think of it, but sometimes the way that you are and the way that you approach things, like right now, one of the realtors that we're working with is like, he'll talk to us like we've been friends for 20 years and like he'll like shoot the shit with us. And it's like, okay, this is something that I want in a realtor because I can trust him more. And so like, that's a value of like a personality aspect. So I think that, I don't know if that's Englishing, but that's kind of where my brain just went with that one.
Yeah, well, I feel like probably that is because you feel that he's just being authentically who he is, right? That you sort of intuitively know that he's not feeding you a bunch of bullshit because he's happy to just stand there and chat.
Yeah. And the fact that he'll be like, no, that house is a dumpster fire. Don't go anywhere near it. Like the fact that somebody would say that versus, and it's just kind of that human to human connection again. But like something with that, if I'm like considering video for that person, would be to have that personality shine through in the video. Cause like I know, like a lot of like my clients and stuff like that are service providers and they're like in like finance or they're in like kind of more of like a dry industry. They'll be like, well, how am I going to show up? Like, what stories am I going to say? Or like, how can I route back to, like, how can I connect this from point A to point B? And I think that's something that you did really well, which I kind of want you to touch on in like your book. Like there was tons of stories into your book and like, there are some wild ones of like the cartel or whatever it was and Alaska, all the things. But it's like people that are just living like non-crazy experiences. I guess how would you... or what advice would you give to like make that point A of like you live this moment and then you can somehow weave that into a story to then benefit your business? I feel like that was a lot of questions in one, but
yeah, I mean, so So look, it's funny that you say that way because I mean I acknowledge that I've been fortunate to lead a life full of unique experiences. I've gotten to do a lot of really cool things. I've had some wild stuff happen to me in my life, and over the course of my career and in my travels around the world, um, that are unique and not necessarily common. The flip side of that is, to me, for the longest time, and I still kind of feel this way, I don't feel that my life is exceptional because it's my life. It's the only life I know. And so inherently, it's just mine, right? It just is. And the same way your life is just yours, or anybody else feels that way about their life, they're like, my life's kind of boring, right?
Yeah, it's like there's nothing special. It's just another day.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's like often I would kind of offhandedly, allude to or mention, maybe one of those wild stories that you were talking about in my book, and people would like pump the brakes on me in conversation, be like, "I'm sorry, what did you just say happened?"
Yeah.
And I'd be like, "Oh, blah blah blah," and they're like, This is crazy. What are you talking
It's like
about?
you need
Like,
a
tell me
full
the whole
stop
story."
repeat.
Yeah, exactly. So, but my point is that all of us have had experiences that to other people are extraordinary, right? Or unique because they're not their own. And so I would say first understand that and accept that, whether or not you don't have to think of your life as extraordinary, but you should accept that to other people parts of your life and stories from your life are going to be extraordinary or exceptional or unique. So take that and accept that, and then look back on your life and just think about the stories that you tell, because we all have stories that we've told lots of times and things that come up repeatedly, right? I mean, life is kind of a bit circular. We do tend to repeat ourselves a lot. So we all have those stories in the back of our minds. And if you just think back and just take a minute to reflect, you can start to pick out the stories that get the best reactions from people, right? And think of those people as your audience. And you can start to see where maybe you can leverage some of your experiences to tell stories that are engaging, but that also allow you or create a vehicle through which you can deliver a message
Right. No,
about your brand, about your business, about your product or your service, right? So if you can do that, there is a way to kind of tie that thread to your business, your brand. The other thing too is it gives people the opportunity to get to know you a little bit, which is incredibly valuable. And then also gives you the chance to demonstrate by telling these stories what your values are as a brand and as an individual. And people make purchasing decisions based on emotion. So if they identify with you on your values, if they identify with your brand on your brand's values, if they see you as a person that they can relate to and empathize with, they're much more likely to work with you, to purchase from you, than they are if you just put your product in front of them and say, here it is, it's $19.99. Click this link and you can have it tomorrow.
absolutely. And I think too, like not even just talking about like extraordinary moments and whatnot, but like having what do you do in your day to day? So for me, like I love hiking, I love running. And so I have made a lot of like analogies in my content referring back to your brand or your like your content and like doing things like that where you'll be doing something and then all of a sudden you'll be like, oh, this actually could make a good analogy. And then if you put that analogy in your content or your video or whatever it is, people are starting to see the real you because you wouldn't be able to make these analogies if you didn't have that lived experience. And I've done a lot of things too, where if I'm like talking about running or something, somebody will be like, oh, I didn't know you ran or I didn't know you hiked. And then they also are into that. And look, now there's a connection formed. Then 10 months down the line, maybe there's an opportunity to work together. And it's like you already feel that shared sense of like connection. So it makes the business relationship or whatever it is easier and smoother because you already feel like you know them as a friend. It's like that likability is already there because of the shared connections. And if you don't share those stories, you miss out on that. I guess like, oh, that was the other thing I wanted to say. I was like, there was something else there. The other thing that's kind of like interesting is I never used to correlate like this experience would make a good story. Like the other day I was at the gym and somebody was running and they smelled awful, and like the whole gym cleared out, and then like like in my head I'm like, I have to hit whatever the mile was, and I'm focused on this, but everybody else is leaving, and I'm like, okay, this is kind of like a good customer experience standpoint, where it's like most of your customers, if you give them a shit experience or whatever, they're gonna bounce, but there will be those some stragglers that are like, no, I really need to get to this goal to get there. So it's like, I don't know. It made sense in my head when I was in the moment. I was like, this can make a good story, but I'm like, no one else would be running. They would just be like, wow, this guy smells bad. But if you're like using that like muscle of turning stories, using your experiences into stories, you start to see these things like all the time, even when you're not trying to.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And the other thing too is I think people fall into this trap of believing that everything has to happen accidentally or organically or naturally and be complete, and then they can turn it into a story, right? And the truth is that really all you need is running on a treadmill next to somebody who smells bad. And like you can turn that into a lesson in a million different ways, right? So really you don't need full stories. You just need experiences, of which we all have many.
Mhm.
You just need an experience and the ability and the skill set to then take that experience and turn it into a story. But no one's saying everything that you say has to have happened exactly the way you say it. Like you can take some creative license. You're not writing a textbook.
Yeah, it's like we're not making like a nonfiction like this is a historical event. Like it's just to get like just to build that form of connection. So in that light, like it's very easy for me in terms of like writing and content and stuff like that to take these stories. Now, from the video perspective, what would you say are like some tips to bring it into the video landscape?
So I think when it comes to telling a story on video, I mean, unsurprisingly, I'm a very visual person. And so for me, what I like to do is if I have a concept or an idea and I want to translate it into video, what I start doing is I start kind of looking for, I start just watching things, right? Just watching content and looking for points of inspiration. So I may, go down like a YouTube rabbit hole, searching particular things, looking for content around those keywords. And I'll just start watching stuff and start accumulating ideas and jotting them down. And eventually I come out with a fully fledged concept that is really a mix of inspiration and borrowing pieces from other content that I find, along with kind of my own perspective and my own skill set and knowledge being brought to bear on the project. So, but that's sort of my approach. And the thing I would always encourage people to do is, and I never do this with the idea that I'm going to make a video just like this video I found. What I'm really doing is going, okay, this is a video on a related subject or related topic from a similar business, whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
Let me watch it, and I just want to take note of what I like and what I don't like, right? And I don't need to necessarily even keep track of that video or I saw those things, right? Because if I keep a running list of what I like and what I don't like, I can go back and look at that and say, okay, I liked these devices. I liked this kind of shot. I liked this sort of visual representation of this thing. And I can start to take those pieces and put them together in a unique way to tell a story through video. So I tend to use visual inspiration a lot, and I will often actually ask clients when they come to me with an idea or something they want to work on together, I will ask them for inspiration pieces. So send me, because part of the job that I have to do, and I'm sure you come across this in your work also, is I have to interpret what they want, put my own spin on it, and then give them something that sort of ticks the boxes, the necessary boxes for what their expectations are. And that can be a challenge. And one of the ways I like to short circuit that is by asking them to show me what they like by sending me reference materials so that I can at least get in the right ballpark with what I create.
It's like you could be visualizing something totally different than what they're visualizing. So as long as we have like the same general concept going, it's much easier to get that final outcome of what you want. I think, too, when it comes like for video content, a lot of my audience is focused mostly on like short form social type of content. So when it comes to that, they're seeing the same like trends and they're seeing the same like shitty videos over and over again. And then they think that that's what they have to create. And there was one line in your book that actually was like, if you're already, something about a trend, it was like, if you're already following it, you're already behind, like, what the fuck you're doing type of thing. And I was like, love this. This is spot on. But for people that are trying to get that and they're like, okay, well, I want to like tell a story. I want to connect with my audience. It seems like everyone on the internet is connecting with their audience through trends, but I want to stand out, or it's the same video style or the same whatever it is. Like, what tip would you give them to kind of like figure out what they like I don't know how to word this, but like to not follow the trends, but to get inspiration to know what they should create?
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. I do talk about this in the book, and I basically say if you're following a trend, you're already behind, right? Because if you try to emulate a trend that is already a trend, you're too late. If it's already trending, you're too late. And the other thing is that somebody used this description a couple of years ago, probably now, and I have repeated I don't know how many times at this point, and I will keep repeating it because I think it's one of the best descriptions I've heard of what chasing trends is. And really, like, it's a hamster wheel, right? It is a hamster wheel. And once you get on the hamster wheel of chasing trends, if you want to actually use it or leverage it, what you then have to do is essentially be glued to your social media so that you can start to sniff the trends out as they're on the rise, not once they've peaked, as they're on the rise, and then hop on the trend, do that trend, and then hop directly onto the next one, and then directly onto the next one, right? And once you start doing that, you're never off the hamster wheel. And if you establish yourself as a brand or a business or a company or a social media profile that is always on trend, then you can't get off that hamster wheel. As soon as you stop being on trend, you stop being relevant.
Yeah, it's literally exhausting and not sustainable, and like that becomes who you are. And it's like that's not you. Like, why? That's not what you started this business for. So why are we doing this? Why are we trying to copy everybody else?
Yeah, exactly. And so what I would recommend is instead of trying to chase a trend, right? Trends can be fun, but you can use them for inspiration, like rather than copying them or participating in them directly. You can use them for inspiration. So, like, this isn't a video example, but I'll mention this anyway, because it was from yesterday. But I put out the most recent edition. I put out a newsletter every week, right? Comes out on Wednesdays. It's called Value First. You can subscribe on LinkedIn if you want. This week's edition was about Katy Perry, basically, and kind of using Katy Perry and what's happening with Katy Perry in the media to kind of illustrate a point, right? And that is that, she did the Blue Origin flight, started calling herself an astronaut, and then launched her world tour in Mexico to the opposite of rave reviews, right? She is getting like torn apart on the internet.
I was gonna say, I knew she was getting dragged for the astronaut. I didn't hear about the tour, so gotta go into that.
Oh yeah, she's getting dragged hard for the tour, and it's because at the end of the day, she's just kind of phoning it in, and it became clear too that the whole Blue Origin stunt was really just a play to try to get some media attention to push tickets for her tour. And so, everybody started to see it as like completely disingenuous.
Yeah. And then that's like, as soon as you lose trust with your audience too, like you're not going to get that back. Like that's gone.
Yeah, exactly. And so like, and actually what I said in the title of the newsletter was, "Hey, Katy Perry, your motive is showing."
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. but yeah, because it was a very clear, like obvious motive that she had gone on this Blue Origin flight basically to raise awareness about her tour, and the whole thing has completely backfired on her in spectacular fashion because she violated everyone's trust and everyone's like, tired of it. But yeah, I mean, so my answer is, I think, do what's genuine, put your audience first. When it comes to creating content, be true to your own voice. Don't try to be somebody else, right? And at the end of the day, you're actually best off being, like, the way I say it is being relentlessly authentic, right? There's this whole kind of weird idea that we're supposed to have one persona at work and one persona outside of work. And that just sounds exhausting to me. And I can't be bothered to do it. So I'm just me everywhere I go.
Exactly. It's like what you see is what you get. If you like it, cool. If you don't, you're probably not for me. So sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. And I try to behave appropriately for the context that I'm in, right? But I'm still me.
Yeah. Exactly. You might have like a professional outfit on versus just like sweats at home, but you're still getting the same general concept.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. My language might be a little bit more colorful outside of a business meeting than it would be inside of a business meeting. But that doesn't mean that I'm not me.
Exactly. And you should be able to feel that in your content and everything else. So your audience knows, like, oh, okay, when I show up to a discovery call, it's not, oh, this is not the person I thought I was meeting online. But on that note, I think that pretty much like sums up like the value and all that stuff. So if people are super interested in engineering and working with you and all that stuff, where can they find you? Where can they learn more?
Yeah, so I'm super easy to find online. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn or on any social media, you can just search at Talix Media LLC is my handle everywhere. So try to be consistent there and have the same handle across every platform. Yeah. And then if you want to if you want to learn more about Talix Media and the work that we do in the production space and as a production company, you can just go to talixmedia.com and our website there. And if you want to learn more about legendeering, and specifically if you want to buy the book, it is available everywhere books are sold, is the easy way to say it. I would suggest if you want to order it, you can do so online at bookshop.org. You can also, of course, order it on Amazon. But I prefer, if you want to order it on bookshop.org or walk into your local bookstore and ask them, they can order it for you there.
Love it. And then I know you also have a masterclass coming up. Do you want to talk about that as well?
Sure. Yeah. I do have a masterclass coming up in just a couple of weeks on May 15th. And the goal of that masterclass is to really just sort of give people some of the tools and some of the understanding they need to get started creating good video content for their businesses and their brands. So it's really meant, it's an hour-long masterclass. I'm not gonna fall into the bro marketing trap of over-promising and under-delivering. I'm not gonna tell you it's gonna make you $1 million because it won't. It's not that kind of. It's not full of hacks and shortcuts and ways that I cheated the system or anything like that. It is good, practicable advice and understanding and some skills that you need to get started creating good video content. It is sort of the 30,000-foot version of the book, so to speak, right? And that was my goal with the book too, which obviously from having read it, that I wanted to spend a bunch of time kind of outlining the philosophy and giving people a good solid understanding of the approach and the methodology, and then going into that methodology in a little bit more detail and saying, hey, if you want to actually produce this stuff, this is how production works.
Yeah, I think that like that. Personally, I loved like the story and like the background, but then I love that you actually do walk people through like, hey, this is how you're gonna like set it up, do all this stuff. Like it was very practical. Like you could walk away and be like, oh, I know what to do now. So 10 out of 10 recommend the book, guys. Even if you don't think that you're gonna be creating video content, it's still a good read.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
But awesome. I love your brain. I love this conversation. I could literally talk to you for hours. So I'm going to try to stop there. But thank you again for coming on. And it was great chatting.
Thanks, Burst. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.